Yeah, hello. It's Martin here from Profuro here again, and Profuro Gear brings to you Marco Mori. He's from Gusto Cycling. That's correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep, and Marco does cycling tours in Tuscany. So I'll hand you over to Marco, and we'll go from there. So Marco, can you please tell us a little bit more about your operation and your company and how it works?
Sure. Well, I'm based in a very pretty spa town called Montecatini Terme, which is sandwiched between Florence, which I'm sure many people have heard, and possibly Lucca, which is another beautiful medieval town. My parents are from Montecatini, although with my accent, you probably guessed I've got a British accent. Yes, I actually live in England, but during the summer, I'm based here at my parents' house. And I run a big cycling tourism business called Gusto Cycling. The word gusto means taste. And with regards to taste, it's about tasting every aspect of a cycle holiday experience, which means cycling through scenic countryside, staying in some beautiful accommodation, and highlighting places to stop for coffee, lunch, visit the odd wine estate, really immersing yourself in the culture in some respects, because you're not going to see big cities on my cycle tours. You go through small villages, small towns, iconic, some places you might have heard of, San Gimignano, Siena, obviously might well be known to you. I've mentioned Lucca. We don't touch Florence at all. It's a big city. It's too busy. It's not conducive to cycling, I'll be honest with you. But my cycling business started in 2010 with a not so much a midlife crisis, but I just wanted to move on. I've been in travel and tourism all my life. I worked for some big companies. I've been tour guiding. I've been a product manager, and I worked for tour operators. And I now wanted to work for myself. So my passion was cycling. So that's point one. I've always been a cyclist since I was 11 years old. My base is in Montecatini in Florence, in Tuscany, which is a beautiful location to actually start a business. And my background is tour operating. So to put the three together, I started Gusto Cycling, and it's grown slowly to begin with. And the last 5 years has been really, really strong. Last year was my best year. I had a record number of bookings from Australia, actually, which was quite nice. Yeah. I had 5 bookings from Australia this year. A couple of families who came over with their children, plus a few couples. Basically, the routes that I do are off the main road as far as possible. But obviously, you're going to find traffic coming into some of the towns. Obviously, some are less so. But I create the routes to make it as safe as possible. As in terms of traffic, there's always going to be some traffic. You can't. Tuscany is
you're on the road, so we can expect some traffic. But you take us on the routes which are lighter traffic. Is that correct?
Yeah. And then there tend to be always secondary roads, and they range between 25 and 50-kilometer rides per day for these tours.
Well, that's a nice ride, and it's reasonably casual.
Because the customer base is not a hardcore cyclist. They're cyclists. The cyclists, in terms of wishing to enjoy a cycle experience, they have cycling as a way of keeping fit, and from that they want to obviously experience a holiday, which no doubt they would have done back home, doing a few tours from home, and then they read about these stories. They know that there are cycling operators out there that are offering a unique experience, a unique way to experience a country, or in this respect, a region. And that's where I'm getting a lot of my customer base from English-speaking nationalities, from Australia, New Zealand, of Africa. Lots of Americans come over, Canadians, and then a smattering of, obviously, Brits. And then we get some Norwegians. I had my first customer from the Middle East.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cycling in the Middle East, I mean, it is there, and it's nice and hot there, but I mean, I have myself a lot of followers from the Middle East on my Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
the
actually good
base.
that you don't have people that are, out there trying to beat their Strava segments out there. They're actually taking it in and.
No. I mean, the age group is very mature. I'd say from 35 plus.
Yeah.
Who are just taking it, want to enjoy a nice, pleasant experience. A nice location for coffee, a nice location for lunch. Which I always recommend because I give every customer a detailed report of each day's experience, what to expect, where to stop, my recommendations. So that's invaluable because you're not then having to look for a place when you arrive along the way. I give lots of information where you might want to stop before my recommendation, but I'll give you some other places to stop just in case you happen to be strong that day or you want to have an earlier stop than perhaps what I might have planned for you. But there's lots of information of places of interest, so that way they arrive mid-afternoon to late afternoon in a hotel or a farmhouse, and that way they're not being killed from going from A to B to C each day. I want them to enjoy the experience, and then when they get to the other side, freshen up, go out for a nice walk, have an aperitivo in a bar, immerse yourself in the culture, and then look forward to a dinner which you've actually earned from a bike ride.
Absolutely.
There's a pleasure in the cycling in that respect. So these tours can range from 5, 6, 7 days. And you can traverse a region. Places that you might have heard of, I mentioned before, Siena, San Gimignano, which is famous for towers.
Yeah.
Many of these stops tend to be on hilltops because being a very medieval region. You've got lots of short climbs. It's not mountainous. We have mountains, but we don't go anywhere near them. But there are hills, which gives you a little bit of a challenge for some people. But you need a bit of a challenge in the day on the bike because it opens your senses and endorphins, and you feel accomplished when you finish the day.
Well, exactly, it's a challenge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The bikes I offer range depending on what kind of cyclist you are.
Well, just quickly, Marco, I just want to take one step back, just for an instant. Sure. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but you're talking about a lot of European people and even Australians and Americans, Middle East people coming and doing your tours. What about Asian people? Do you get any Asians, or has there been any interest in Asian people?
No. The Chinese market to Europe is phenomenally big, huge, but I never, ever get an inquiry.
Okay.
The Chinese tend to come over in big groups with a group organizer, and they want to see all the major highlights of Rome, and Florence.
They're organized language issues and all that sort of stuff. I can understand that, but
no, we don't. I don't know how big the market. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how big the cycling market is in the Far East, but I personally haven't come across. I came across a group of 4 Indian cyclists with another tour operator in Chianti, and I actually asked a question to them. Is cycling big in India? He says, "Yeah, it's growing. It's growing."
Yeah.
Well,
I get inquiries quite a lot actually. So yeah,
really?
I think it is definitely.
Okay.
I think the whole landscape there is changing a bit, especially when you're looking at Korea, Japan, and in China. Cycling's becoming very and India. Cycling's becoming quite the recreation and quite the sport. So I think you might see some in the future as they pull away from organised tours and become a bit more confident to go forward. Yeah. But anyway, that's all I wanted to go over. I just wanted to see if you had any there because it is changing. I mean, so I just
I'd like to tap into that market, but it's obviously a question of getting yourself noticed. I had my first ever inquiry from a Russian group, from a Lithuanian agent, and that was going really well. I spent 4 months planning the tour. They wanted to stay in some really nice hotels. They wanted to enjoy some really good wine and some wine estates in southern Tuscany. And then obviously with the coronavirus situation, it's all been cancelled. I hope they'll come back next year.
Yeah.
But they wanted specifically, I mean, every inquiry is bespoke. I'll point this out to you that not every tour is the same. I vary the tour depending on how fit they are or whether they want to do more or less. They want to go places that they haven't seen before and don't want to go to some of the places they've been before. So I don't know that until we talk. There's a lot of communication with the customer. It's not a straightforward holiday where they want accommodation, transfers, and a flight. Cycling is very, very different in terms of the amount of communication. And maybe I'm sure you might have the same feeling. There's a lot of communication with the customer in terms of experience, what they expect, how fit they are, what kind of bike they want to rent, what are the gears, what's the route going to be like, how do I follow the route, and what happens if I have a problem.
Are they guided, Marco? Like
I sometimes, it's both. Okay. Obviously, it costs more if you have a guide, but generally speaking, a lot of people like to be self-guided. Occasionally, I'll just turn up for one day.
Okay.
Because I want to. I always meet all my customers at some point, even if they're on a self-guide. I'll meet them for a coffee. I'll meet them for a drink. I don't want to impose on them, but I just turn up and say hi. I'm just gonna tell her and just make sure you're happy with the tour and any comments. But generally speaking, it's been it's a really good experience from my point of view. I'm in contact with the customer daily by WhatsApp, which is a fantastic tool.
Yeah, sure.
So that I forward them something to look forward to, or any last minute changes may occur the next day that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So I always, each day I get a response from them to say how well the day went, what the experience was, maybe the odd photograph just to show me that they're having a good time. So there's a lot of dialogue with the customer. You become pretty good friends, I'm still in contact with people from America, from Norway, a British cyclist who brought a group of 10 riders last year, asked how things are, and it's nice. It's nice to be in contact with people. It's not a tour that you would come back to each year. It's once you've experienced Tuscany, you might want to go to France. You might want to go to Slovenia. But word of mouth helps because they tell people about what I've offered, and I do get some referrals, which is nice. Sure. But as I mentioned before, the communication is vast. Absolutely, it's constantly up and down with regards to their expectations, and I want to meet their expectations, and I give them a complete route plan, which I create on Ride with GPS. I don't know if you've come across that.
Okay, and so you give them a little computer, and then they can just follow that. Cool. Yeah,
I'm a tour operator. I have a tour operator account with this application from America called Ride with GPS. It's a really good product.
Okay.
Which you can then download to your iPhone.
Yeah.
And then basically each day is already itemized for your route. You just press start and off you go from your hotel or farmhouse.
You by the GPS and
there's no more paper because what you don't want to do is suddenly stop, get the
looking at maps and all that sort of
left, right. It's going to be seamless.
Yeah.
And this application talks to you and gives you the signs as to when you'll be turning left or right.
Well,
so that's the backup.
Yeah.
That's a really good feature that I introduced last year, and I've refined it. And on there now, I highlight places to stop for coffee, for lunch. I also recommend places for dinner.
You can pre-program that in. You've got an agreement or an arrangement, or maybe it's like a relationship with these companies.
Yeah.
Know what they're going to give, and so it's sort of tried and true, right? So
it's a great product because it takes away the worry of if you've lost your notes. Where do I find them?
Of course.
The good thing is you don't need to use up data. It's GPS, so it's all just connected to the satellite with no data being used.
So that's even better, isn't it?
It's cost-free, just to make sure you got a battery backup in case of any delays. I gave a whole breakdown of the hotels you're staying at, the telephone number, the website, so in advance you know what you're looking forward to, and you can pass that information on to your family and friends if anyone needs to get a hold of you at a certain time in a hotel, so that you're in communication if you ever need to. But it's been a really good learning curve for me because it's another benefit to the customer to have this product, and a lot of them don't know about the application. So I give them a detailed document that follows, and video links to the company to show them how to upload it, how to use it. And it's private, so I create the route just in their name only, so only they can see it, nobody else can. So no one can interfere with that particular route.
Okay, yeah, so no one can hack into it and send you off going somewhere.
Yeah. No. But I mentioned to you about the bikes.
Yeah, please go on. You know, I just one more thing to say before you get onto that. I'm just saying that what a fantastic application. And I was thinking about the different lights of tourists, because there are different groups that are more self-confident to go traveling around, but you have others like Asians that are more traditionally into the organized tour. But this app, it seems to me like a really good bridge in between, because it seems very visual. Everything's pre-booked, everything's right there, and so I think that would be a very great thing to develop even further. Fantastic. I mean, that's really great.
Even for the groups of cyclists, you know, a bit like the riders behind you in your background picture. You know, I get a lot of boy racers who you know, like to enjoy a good ride out, maybe 70, 80 kilometers, sometimes 90 a day.
Yeah.
And I have those. Yeah, I don't do many cycling clubs. They're just groups of cycling friends, should we say?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Boys' own trip, where they just have a boys' own trip away, and they want to enjoy a good hard day cycling, and they want to enjoy a good meal.
Yeah, good meal, and a couple of wines and a
mix
and stuff like that.
Yeah, a real mix of customers, which I love.
Okay.
And I said with these boy races, you know, I have to train for this occasionally harder than I normally have to. I can't keep up with them. You know, I might be a guy, but you know, I say to them, "I'll see you at the top of the hill."
Yeah, I'll see.
You know, everyone charges at the top, and you know, these climbs can be 4, 5, 6, 7K, and then we all meet up at the top, and then we carry on. And they have to wait for me anyway, because I know where I'm going.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Well, it gives them a chance to have a bit of a breather and rest the leg a bit, I guess.
And obviously, the cost of taking your own bike
well, that was the question I wanted to ask you about. So now we're getting into the bikes. Let's go there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see, some people like to bring their own bikes on a tour. That's fine. But some people just prefer to rent bikes. So I have access to rental partners that I judge to offer a very good level of service. They obviously service the bikes beforehand. They will deliver the bikes on a given day at a given time, and they have a contact name in case, and a number in case there's any issues with the bikes, which is very, very rare. So we have racing bikes, you know, proper full carbon racing bikes with compact gearing, which is 50, 34 at the front, and 11 to
32 or something, maybe.
Yeah.
28.
And that will cover any terrain whatsoever, literally. So there's that for some customers. They would like to have a racing bike. Then there's the hybrid bike. The hybrid bikes tends to be for the leisure cyclist, the one who doesn't own a carbon racing bikes, but has a hybrid bike back home. I mean, comfortable, there's more gears. There's 3 chain sets at the front, and about 10, 11 at the back, and that has amazing gearing to get up any.
It's got the granny gear that'll get you up anyway.
But it's a heavy bike. It's a really heavy bike. But you know, we're not doing long distances here. You know, I mentioned 35, 45, 50 kilometers tops per day. And then you've got the electric bike. Now that is growing on a huge level now.
I think so. I mean, it just opens up the sport, or opens up the recreation to such a much larger audience, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the electric bike, you charge it overnight, and then you've got at least 60 to 70 kilometers worth of power. Now, you've obviously got a pedal. You can't make it too easy.
I mean, you still got a pedal with it,
Yeah. But it's more pleasurable, and I highlight this as a very important aspect in July and August here in Europe, when it's very, very hot. Very hot. I mean, you know, literally this last year was around 35 to 40 degrees at times during the day. You have to leave early in the morning. And, you know, if you're on a hybrid bike in those periods, it can be can be a long day in the heat. Electric bikes give you access to get to a point perhaps a lot quicker, but also more refreshed. then shattered.
Yeah, no, that's right.
with it, with it,
You're supposed to
with
enjoy it,
people.
aren't you? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want them to suddenly get to the hotel and flake out and they can't even enjoy the evening because they're so tired. That's not what my tours are about. So I make sure that the routes and the type of bike and the time of year is appropriate, and they're aware of this as well, because not everyone is aware of the different seasonal periods, shall we say, if you're not from Europe. So they're the 3 bikes that are available to the customer. I have somebody who, the lady would like electric bike, but her husband likes a racing bike.
Sure.
So there's a certain amount of compatibility there, so that the wife or the girlfriend can keep up with the boyfriend or the husband,
Yeah. No,
or even surpass them on
yeah.
the motor bike. So
what about the bike fit? I mean, that's an important part of it. Do you get dimensions from like height and weight of the people? And
all I need to know is the height of the guest, because the carbon racing bikes and all bikes are based on small, medium, large, extra large sizes. And on that basis, we can determine the height. But from just the height, we can then determine the size of bike.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the seat that can be elevated by a couple of inches one way or the other, just to give that extra comfort.
Yeah, that's right. You just got to watch out for carbon bikes, so you don't crack the carbon and have a torque wrench or something that they can.
Yeah, they can bring their own pedals, but again, I provide the pedals. Usually it's KO, in majority it's KO or Shimano SL. Majority of cases for the carbon bike, but for the hybrid and the electric bike, we may normally it's flat pedals, but some people would like perhaps a toe clip.
Oh right, okay, a toe clip. Yeah.
Which means that we don't put a strap over it, because I don't want them to be enclosed inside. Just enough to rest the foot in the pedal with a bit of a support from the toe clip.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's really important, because if you're jumping out of the bicycle, you don't want to suddenly lose your footing and put your foot straight in front of the pedal and really hurt your tendons. So that's something that we do. And then every bike comes with a puncher kit, basic puncher kit, a small pump, inner tube, and tire levers. The prerequisite of any cycle tour is that everyone should be able to change a tire in a tube. Yeah, because that is a prerequisite. You can't expect somebody to drive 50 miles to change an inner tube, and it has happened once to me about 6 years ago. I make sure that that is a basic requirement, that you need to understand how to change an inner tube, because it's a basic cycling element to any cyclist. If you're going cycling back home.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, well, of course it is. So I mean, these tours are based for people that are cycling, recreational cyclists anyway, sport or recreational. So they really should have it. I mean, it's that sector of the market or that sector of the people that you're really targeting. So I don't think it's really,
I don't have any problem.
I mean, definitely that they know how to change a tire. That's
Then the other element that we always supply is a helmet. Obviously, it's important that a helmet always provided. Some people bring their own, but we supply the helmet as well. And then the tours, you mentioned the tours. Well, the tours I do are very distinct. There's a Tuscany, if you look at the region, is, in my view, split in 2 ways. It's the north, the west, and the south. I focus much on the north and the south to give you an insight into Italy, into the region of Tuscany. The north is flatter, with just a few climbs, more towards the latter end of the tour over 7 days. You start in Lucca. When you fly into Pisa Airport or Florence, I can arrange, or you can take the train to Lucca. I would then arrange for the bikes to be delivered to the hotel. An explanation of the bike's characteristics is then given to the guests, and then that they can relax, because it's a very, very friendly cycle town, Lucca. It's a beautiful medieval town surrounded by 15th century walls, and you can actually cycle around the town on the battlement. It's 4 kilometers all the way around. The inside is very tiny alleyways full of traditional shops.
Yeah.
and restaurants, and it feels great, especially at night when all the restaurants light up their locations with candles leading up to their restaurants, because they're so well placed around the medieval town. You can't always tell if it's a restaurant or not unless you see these
Yeah,
flickering
this is a
lights.
little bit of a guide. It sounds truly medieval. It really does.
Yeah, it's very medieval. I mean, at night time, all the tourists have gone. And
Yeah.
Lucca only has about 12 hotels. They're not very big. So being a medieval town, there's no hotels with swimming pool. And so you're left with a certain number of people living in the town, and then the tourists. So there's plenty of room to enjoy different meals and wine tasting. Next day, you cycle to Pisa and back. Now, Pisa is, everyone pretty much knows, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and that's really what you're going to see.
Yeah. Right.
The famous cathedral, but the Leaning Tower is one of those wow factors that, if you're that close to Pisa, you need to go and see it. And you can cycle very, very easily on the river. There's a cycle track along the river Serchio that will take you to the entrance to the town, and then obviously you have to go into town, which is where I mentioned before. Some of these towns you have to expect some traffic, but
Yeah.
good thing is cycling is a major sport in Italy, and cyclists are an integral part of the transport system anyway. And so it's not as if you're an alien and you're going to be beeped at. It's very rare to get that.
No, I think there's a different attitude when there is a background in cycling as a mode of transport naturally in that, in those areas. I mean, it should be fine. And I think a lot of recreational cyclists have to deal with, riding on the roads anyway, wherever they come from, basically.
And then you cycle back the same route. And that's a 50K route, but it's absolutely flat as a pancake. So it's a nice day out. And then next day we head to my hometown, Montecatini. It's about 35K. We take you around the back streets into the countryside. You start to immerse yourself into the countryside. We stop off for lunch in a little village called Monte Carlo. It is Monte Carlo, but not south of France.
All right.
The tax haven. This is actually a small village, hilltop village, 300 meters high. One side is vineyards, the other side is olive trees.
Oh wow!
So
That's a sunny
very nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's lovely views from up there. It's the only climb of the day. It's short, about 1.5 K. And again, this is what I recommend on the route. And then you arrive in our hometown, and you stay here for 1 night or 2 nights, depending on the route and choice. Being a small spa town, it's quite lively in the evening, more so than in Lucca. We've got lots of bars and restaurants in the centre, but we have a funicular that will take you up to 300 meters to Montecatini Alto, to a beautiful medieval village, great views of the countryside, and you can have dinner there, which I recommend to the guests during a 2-night stay.
Sure.
And then we then cycle to Vinci. Nice, easy ride again through the countryside, 35K. Now, Vinci is the home of Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay. And
there was a lot of coverage about Leonardo's death last year because it was his 500th anniversary of his death.
Yeah. Right.
In 2019. So there's a lot of coverage all over Europe, and drawings and his designs. And in Vinci, there's a lovely museum where his designs have been created into models. So you can see the bicycle that he created in the 1500s, wooden bicycle. Lots of cantilevers. He was an incredible engineer, not just a designer. He engineered so much. So there's that aspect of the connection. You can actually go and see where he was born. Yep. But it's a tough climb to the house. Right. If you're feeling energetic. And we stay in a farmhouse. This time we're staying in a family farmhouse where they produce their own salami. They produce their own food, generally speaking, because it's an agriturismo. I don't know if you come across that word before, agriturismo. Mm. Agriturismo is an Italian term for a farmhouse that produces at least 70% of its food that they offer to the guests is homegrown.
Right.
And
So
that's
it's like
the key
a
element.
yeah, like a working farm, but it's for tourism as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I like to give a balance of accommodation. Obviously, in Lucca, you've got to be inside. I want you to experience Lucca. Montecatini is a spa town. Then we moved to a farmhouse. They make their own wine. They make their own olive oil. They make their own cheese. So you're immersed in the family. There's about 4 generations there working. You go into the kitchen, you've got the grandmother still making the sauce for the pasta. She's about
Yeah.
85 years old, and she's still doing it to the same recipe as her mother told her.
Recipe, and it's probably famous, and she's the only one in the village that does it, and that's what they
Yeah,
know.
yeah, well, it adds character, because what people want on a bike holiday is experiences. You want experiences each day, because otherwise, what are you going to talk about when you get home? You want to experience the food, the wine, the people, the
The
scenery.
architecture, everything. It sounds fabulous. I'm ready to book now, Marco. I tell you.
I mean,
What are the people like? I mean, is it an older thing? Is there younger people? Are there is it young families, or do like the let's say 20s to 30s they move to the big towns, or is it just a whole mix of people in there?
it's a real mix of people. I mean, we get some young couples, but majority are, I said, the mature group. I'd say 35. When I say mature, I mean professionals, 35 plus,
Yeah.
who are not avid cyclists. They're just wanting to enjoy a cycling holiday experience. I remember I had 5 Danish boys who came over, and I asked them how come. Well, I thought they were all cyclists. They wanted carbon racing bikes. They wanted to know the gears. It turns out that only one of them was a cyclist. The other 4 were just non-cyclists. But
Nice.
because each year this group would nominate their own type of holiday, so the other 4 had to carry on with them. So these 4 guys had to take a cycling holiday for a week,
Maybe a
and
challenge.
so they came over. Yeah, they came over, but I didn't realize that they weren't fit. And they wanted some challenges, so I gave them a chance to cycle to our ski resort at 1,400 meters.
Wow.
Then I said to them, "I'm sorry guys, but I've got to change the whole route." He said, no, we want to experience this. We came for a challenge. Well, we want the challenge.
Oh,
So,
did you get the guts out
well,
on the road on the
so on the route, I mean, this is self-guided, so I didn't need to go on this, but I did go on a couple of rides with them to the coast and that. So I'll tell you about it in a moment. But so I gave them 2 options to kind of bail out after 30K, after 60K. But it was a 120K return trip. It was 60K there, 60 back.
Wow.
It was 40K climbs, not hugely severe, but, some at 4%, some at 6%. But, it wears you out.
Decent enough if you're not up for it, like you're not,
Oh.
you mean not up for it if you're not trained for it or whatever. It's
I met up with them at 10 o'clock that evening, and I met. They got there and they got back, but literally they were all silent. They were numb with the exhaustion, and one of them was literally bent over his plate of pasta. I thought he was going to head straight into it because he was absolutely shattered. The next day I took him to the seaside, and that was a nice, easy route. It was a hot day. We had a nice plate of pasta with fish and a couple of beers, and after that they were zonked. They took the train back with the bikes back to Montecatini, and I cycled back with my brother back. And that was a hot day as well. I mean, I could easily have taken the train, but I wanted to get back on the bike. But you got to try and find out as much as you can about the customer experience and knowledge.
That's important, and if they don't tell you that, you can't assume anything. It tells you important.
No.
You must have a checklist or something that you can give them, or like a point list of something.
Well, I always asked them how fit you are, and I gave them a Tuscany information document. It's quite long. It's about 12 pages about aspects of Italy, the power usage, the tips, the quirkiness of the Italians, what to bring, cream, preparation for the bike ride. What to bring on a bike ride, like obviously bring a camera, bring some cream. I supply water bottles, so you don't have to worry about that. So there's no doubt with this information beforehand what they should expect to do and to be ready. Because if you spend the time training, you'll enjoy this more.
No, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Don't train, and you're going to suffer. And that's not what the experience is meant to be, really. So that's one of the experiences I remember. I mean, like I said, with the choice of what you have here is mountainous, seaside, country roads, country lanes, and we also have gravel roads. Now, I don't know if that's a growing area in Australia, but
yeah,
gravel bikes now are taken off, and we do now have gravel bikes
yeah,
for rent,
yeah. They've got
which are
bigger tire.
wider tires,
Yeah,
yeah, wider tires, bigger clearance,
yeah.
and that's another area because I don't know if you come across an event called Leroica,
No,
which is a
I personally
medieval bike ride. Not medieval. It's an old-fashioned bike event
don't.
held in Chianti, in Gaioli. Basically, cyclists have to wear old-fashioned woolen cycling gear, which wool, yeah,
Yeah, right.
because that's what we used to ride
Yeah,
in woolen jerseys.
indeed. Yes, it used to be wool.
Yeah, and with woolen jerseys, you'd be riding on a steel bike.
I hope they got a good chamois in there. Well, at
Yeah.
least. But anyway.
Yeah. So this experience of this bike event has grown into a new market, a brand new market that wasn't there 20 years ago, and it's only really taken off in the last 5. And this event brings 7,500 riders from all over the world to take part in October. And I'm one of the partners of this event.
Okay. That must take some organising.
Yeah, well, when I say I'm a tour operator partner, so I am an official tour operator. So I sell packages of accommodation in castles, in farmhouses, in hotels within 10, 12 kilometers of the event because people want to be really close. But I'm also the organizer of the same event in the UK called Eroica Britannia, which is a very popular event in the UK. But again, it's all old-fashioned ethos. There's no lycra involved in this. It's all very much traditional, old-fashioned cycling. But yeah, there's a market for that, and a lot of women take part as well. It's not a race. It's a journey. You eat and drink along the route.
Yeah.
That's what appealed to me when I first came across it. So the gravel routes are a feature. Yeah, the gravel routes are a feature of southern Tuscany. Now, I mentioned about the north. I'll just finish off the north now before I talk about the south. The north, after Vinci, you go to San Gimignano, which is a beautiful hilltop town with at least 9 huge towers. There used to be more than 30 in the 15, 16, 1700s. And each tower reflected the power of the family. The higher the tower, the more influence and affluence the family had.
Yeah.
And we can stay inside the medieval square in the medieval town, or we stay in a farmhouse, which I recommend. Lovely couple that run it with the daughter, and there's a fabulous dinner at night with the local wine that they produce, and people love that. Being in these towns can be quite busy as well. San Gimignano is very, very busy during the day. At nighttime, it's dead. Literally everyone's gone. There's only 4 hotels, and you feel like when you stay there at night, you feel like you're back in time. It's very, very low lighting. Everything's closed. The only thing that's open is restaurants. And there's few and far between. So the whole place is yours, literally, at night. It's an incredible feeling. Next day, we then head towards the finish at Siena. And that gets a bit more hilly. That's a more challenging ride of about 65K. And I recommend a stop for lunch, a decent lunch, to build up your energy levels again, because you've got a bit more climbing to do. And then about 5K out, you can see this in the view right in front of you, this whole tower with its towers right in front of you. And then you're heading towards it, again, a little climb up to the town, and you have a look around, have a nice scream, have a beer, you've earned it. Then you've got a 5K climb to the farmhouse. I was referring to San Gimignano. Sorry, you cycle to Siena, you arrive in the famous Piazza del Campo.
Yeah.
The Piazza del Campo is famous for it's a horse race called the Paglia. It's a horseback ride. There's no saddles. It's where they go crazily, they go around about 2.5 laps around the piazza with lots of color. The horses are blessed the night before in the church, and then 4 hours before the ride, thousands of people are sent into the center of the course, and then they close in for 4 hours in the midday sun. It's live on national TV, and there's 11 horses, and each horse represents a contrada, and a contrada is a suburb of Siena. They have their own church, their own colour, their own bands, they have their own logos and flags waving. There's all that palaver for 2 hours beforehand, lots of atmosphere, all the shop windows, all the properties with balconies are all booked out, and they just enjoy the atmosphere and then watch the race. The race lasts a minute and a half, but it's all the palaver beforehand, you know.
Yeah,
it's all the build up. It's a great experience to watch. It's one Sunday in August and one in July. But that's for my cyclists, you know, you wouldn't even be able to get rooms for that. That's why you need to be aware of the date of that event. It's not easy to get accommodation. And the earlier you book, the more chance you'll get accommodation and be able to enjoy the next day, because you stay 2 nights in Siena. And then from Siena, you've got the train station nearby, and then off you go and head towards the airport or wherever your onward journey is.
Yeah. Right.
So that's the north. So that's a northern trip. The south is completely different. It's more open space, very agricultural. It's not industrial like the north. You know, the north has got big industry, big companies, lorries, factories. The south is very agricultural and very vineyard based as well. So it's a completely different experience, but there's more climbing. We start in San Gimignano. So I've explained San Gimignano already. Then we cycle to Chianti. Chianti, I think people kind of have some idea of Chianti in terms of it's a famous wine region, probably the most famous wine region most people know of. And the quality of the wine has always improved year on year. Didn't have a great name in the 70s, Chianti with a basket. Remember the basket with the wine inside the basket?
Oh, yes.
Well, once it was finished, you'd stick a candle and light it up, and that was your temple.
That's correct. Yeah.
The quality's all moved on from now. The wine, the super Tuscan wines, the Chianti wine have got a very good name. Okay. And so you stay in a medieval village called Rada in Chianti. And the next day is a nice short 35K, and you go, and I send you to 3 different vineyards to enjoy wine tasting, maybe lunch in one of them. It's a nice day out to experience the wine region properly. Next day we cycle to a farmhouse near Serra di Rapolano. Again, family business, homemade cooking. The route's beautiful because we start to change from the vineyards of Chianti, more open space, moonlight features, very featureless in some respects. It's more open countryside with lots of valley views ahead of you. Next day is a really interesting day. We head towards Pienza, again, another hilltop medieval town famous for pecorino cheese. The cheese you can smell 2 miles outside the town. You can smell it. It's famous cheese, sold all over the world, and you can go into these cheese shops to the heart's content and buy as much cheese as you want and send it back home if you wish. We stay in a nice couple of choice of hotels there, 3- and 4-star hotels. Again, at night time, you go, I let you loose. You never eat in the hotels each night. You're always going to experience a restaurant.
Experience the local little restaurants and stuff like that. Yeah. And communication is okay. Like, I mean, it sounds to me like these towns are more of an older crowd or something like that. But are they all Italian speaking? If I'm speaking English and I don't know any other language,
English is
communication.
Communication is very, very easy. English is spoken majority of the towns easily with the staff there. English is a prerequisite for some of these restaurants and bars, and they all have English as part of the second language, to be honest. And the nice thing is you're served by Italians. You're not served by non-Italians. It's nice to have that experience whereby you're in the country and you immerse yourself in the language, in the culture, and you're meeting Italians, family Italians in respects of the farmhouses. And the restaurants are always every restaurant's family owned. Every restaurant closes 1 day a week. They need a rest.
Yeah.
here in England, it's 7 days, 7 days. They don't
Same
close
here.
for
It's
Christmas Day.
days.
The Italians always have one day. So when I recommend restaurants, there's always a telephone number. Not knowing what day of the week they're going to close, you just ring them up or ask the hotel to ring the restaurant on your behalf to make sure there's a table available and is open. And from Pienza, we do a 2-night stay in Pienza. I've got a lovely hotel, a relay hotel, which just got beautiful views up for breakfast of the countryside. I mean, you can see about 20 miles ahead of you, and it's rolling hills. And then the next day you go to another medieval town, very famous, called Montepulciano. Very medieval, much bigger than Pienza. Famous for Montepulciano, Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, a local red wine, very famous for that region. And then you cycle south, and I send you to a small village with a restaurant with a view. It's a fabulous stop. It's the halfway point. It's about 45k ride that day, and then you've got a nice climb back to the hotel. But then you've enjoyed the day, and you're obviously going to be looking forward to a really nice dinner in the evening. And then next day is the last day, the bike ride to Montalcino. And that's another climb up to a very famous hilltop medieval town, famous for Montalcino wine, which is 4 years to produce, 2 years in steel and 2 years in oak, French barrels. That's why it's a premium price, but there's lots of wine tasting, so you can enjoy the odd glass of a vintage or a reserve. So the wine experiences is part of this tour. And you stay the night there. Then I organize the next day a transfer to Buonconvento train station, which is about 70 kilometers away. And there you catch the train to Florence or onwards to Pisa or wherever you wish to go onwards on your tour. So the two distinct trips, I'd say majority of my customers like the south because they like the idea that it's less traffic, but you have to be fit. Yeah, there's more countryside. The routes are slightly longer than the north, but you have to be fitter. It depends what you want to see and what you want to experience. I had a client who's been on Tuscany North 1 year, came the following year and wanted to do Tuscany South. Yeah. So there's that dimension. But it's a nice mix of accommodation, experiences, routes, food. The food changes from province to province. It's everyone cooks a pasta in a certain style, have their own specialities of the house. The wine's different. So you have a really good.
Well, like the food is seasonal as well. Like having lived in Asia for a long time. You're right. Every province has its own little specialty dish, but it also changes with the seasons. Does that happen in Italy as well?
Yeah, I mean, the Mediterranean diet, they say, is one of the best diets of all. I mean, the Italians seem to live longer, and that's a reflection of a lot of fresh food. A lot of olive oil is used in the cooking. Wine, not too much, but that helps.
Yes, but enough to settle the nerves. Yeah.
Yeah, and cheese, obviously. But going back to the specialities, September is porcini month. Porcini is a very famous and very expensive mushroom. But it's great on eggs. It's great in pasta sauce. And it's great when fried. And you only get it for 4 weeks. It's great as a salad with Parmesan cheese and a little bit of olive oil as a starter. And so you get that 4-week window. You pay premium, but you wait all year for it.
Yeah, right.
And you can't wait to try it. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
You can get them. You can buy dry mushrooms. And funny enough, 2 days ago we had mushroom risotto. But this porcini, it gives it a distinct flavor. Which is nice, and it's worth experiencing it. I'm sure you can buy it in the local deli. It's a bit pricey, but hey, for one dish a year or two, Martin, you should give that a try.
I will. I'll have a look. It'd be better to eat it fresh, and
Yeah.
from the country it's from. Obviously, I mean.
Well, there's
Getting my
it's a very secretive market because the farmers or the mushroom pickers will never tell you where they go to collect it, where they go and look for these.
They don't want
But you need, yeah. But in August you need rain and sun.
Yep.
That combination then gives the volume of mushrooms, and without that you won't get a good year. But last year was a very good year. We had a certain amount of rain, but we had a lot of sun, and that helped. But they're hidden in the countryside, in the mountains, and we've got lots of mountains here, and people are very secretive about where they go and collect, where they find them.
You've got to be an insider.
Some people do it. Yeah, it's a business as well. For 4 weeks they'll go and collect, and then they sell it to the restaurants.
Yeah.
And that's how that particular market works.
I can imagine. For a very limited time.
Mushrooms, they're big. They're really, really big mushrooms, and they sit outside in a crate outside a restaurant door, so it's that time of year, and that's what's going to be on the menu.
Maybe you got some photos, Marco, that you can see, or something like that, and some photos of the tour, and just like half a dozen or something like that. But interesting to see these big mushrooms that you talk of.
Yeah. I mean, my forte is attention to detail. I'm very, very passionate about. I don't want to give the customer any surprises.
Sure.
And attention to detail is something that I'm very pleased. I get recognized for, because on TripAdvisor and Augusta Cycling, I get 4 and 5 star reviews every time, and so that helps me be happy in my own business that I'm doing the right thing, and I always want the customer to enjoy themselves, have a great experience, and that's reflected in the feedback I've always had on a daily basis. Sometimes on the WhatsApp, as much as I ask them always at the end of the tour. I give them about a week's respite before I contact them, while it's still fresh in their minds. How was the week? I ask them about the hotels, the route, the application,
and just a follow-up to make sure that everything's working well and all that sort of thing. But, I mean, it certainly sounds really interesting, Marco. I mean, I'm just about going to grab my suitcase. Damn, it's COVID. I can't really do that. And so that was a segue, wasn't it? So basically, I'd like to talk about COVID. Obviously, it's had a huge impact all over the world. And, your business would be something that would be impacted by this. So I'd like to know what steps, or what you're doing to operate now, what steps you've taken to sort of COVID-proof your business, if there are any steps, or what steps there are to rebuild and redo, and what you're doing now, or to diversify your business somehow.
Well, normally I don't have any business in at this time of year, in March, for instance, but there happened to be a big cycle event called Strade Bianche, the White Road pro race and amateur event on Sunday, which has grown and grown to 6,000 riders. So I actually promoted it for the first time, and I actually had 30 clients already for the 6th of March to the 9th of March. And then as the coronavirus situation got bigger and bigger in China in January, and then it started to come over here with elements of people catching it in February. Everyone started to wobble. Come 1st of March, people did wobble, and quite rightly so. They decided to stay home. They didn't want to be caught out in any lockdown that might occur. But it just so happens, out of 30 clients, 28 cancelled, but 2 from Australia already were on holiday in Italy.
They're already there, right?
Yeah. They were from the Gold Coast, actually.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
About that?
Yeah. And they were young. One was a medic, but he was on holiday, David. And so I met up with them. So obviously there was no pro race to watch. So I took him into Chianti and did that famous free visit to wine estate. The problem is that in March, everything's closed. One wine estate was open, so we enjoyed a really good bottle of wine. And then we went to a pizzeria in Rada, but we had a good day. And the next day we did the actual White Roads race, but not a race as such, but just experienced the route. And
you just went on the route. Yeah.
But then on the day left.
It's just to make sure so everyone can understand, things are closed as it's winter, right? And so that's sort of what the down.
Our cycling season really takes off from Easter. Whenever Easter takes place, that's when the season starts. The hotels, the restaurants, and tourism in general takes off.
Summer and autumn, right? I imagine.
Yeah. The season is very short. It's April to October. That's very much the cycling season.
Yeah.
But having an event in early March was great. New business for me.
Yeah.
New experience because it's the first time I featured it. And then I had, when they left on the Monday the 9th, things got really worse. You know, we had a lovely lunch in the piazza in Siena on the Sunday after the ride. And then everything changed on the Monday. There was going to be an announcement by the government on the Tuesday. And I happened to have another couple, which again was unusual. But they were from Aussie as well, 2 Aussies on a cycle tour that I organised. They were on the Tuscany North.
Okay.
And they were on their 5th day out of 6-day tour when the announcement took place where the lockdown had just been implemented, which meant that you couldn't actually travel anymore. But I had their luggage from one town. They'd already cycled on their way to San Gimignano. So I collected the luggage and went ahead to San Gimignano. I got to the hotel. The hotel was only staying open just to tell me they were closing. So then I had to go backtrack and find the 2 Aussies who had stayed in a stop at a lunch stop that I recommended. So it was great. So I found them, let them have their lunch. And then I said, listen, the holiday's pretty much finished now. You can't even get a coffee, literally. So they were grateful that I acted very quickly. I took them to San Gimignano. I organised a taxi. They took them to Siena. I made sure the hotel in Siena was open for them. So the next day, they then took the last flight from Rome back to Australia.
God, that's lucky, isn't it? Imagine if they were caught in a lockdown from there. I mean, that could have been disastrous, really.
Yeah, it was great that I was around to help them. Absolutely. And I got a lovely email when they've invited me over to Australia. And they gave me some great last reviews on TripAdvisor, which again was not very heartening. But that was my last client of the year. I've had any new inquiries in any time since March. Nobody has. And what's happened is some events that I sell, like bike events that I am involved in, has moved to next year. So a whole bunch of 40 clients of mine have moved to a July event. The Maratona that I'm a partner of has moved to next year. Some of my tours in May and June has moved to September, October. Some have already moved to next year because they just want to have that confidence that the event will
actually take place, right? And they don't know because obviously deposits have to be paid, and there's also
I've had deposits from all the clients, but I've given deposits back to one customer who wanted it back, fine. But the rest, I'm trying to see if they can either commit to later in the year or commit to next year. So at least I have some semblance of a business because it's tough. Nothing's moving and nothing's happening until the confidence comes back. And the confidence will only come back when we start to see it in reality. Now, the lockdown in Italy opens up on the 4th of May.
Okay, all right.
That'll be the first time I can go on a bicycle.
Yeah.
But we're not allowed to cycle with anybody else. We're allowed to cycle on our own.
Right.
We can't leave the region. So I can't go from Tuscany to Rome. I can't go from Tuscany to Bologna in Emilia-Romagna. I can't go to Genoa in Liguria. I have to stay
in your area. I mean, Australia is similar. We've got our states, and Gold Coast is very close to the New South Wales, Queensland border, and they've closed that border. So we can't really go there, but it's a lot bigger here, right? We don't have the amount of borders that you would, for example. So, we've got a bit more range and a bit more scope. We're allowed to ride with 2 riders. That's about it, but no other groups, bigger than that, essentially, unless you're a family. The only exception is if you're a family or you're in a household that live together. Like if you've got 4 people that live in a household, I think you're allowed to ride as 4 people. So that allows for families and stuff like that. And we've actually, I've been out on rides because I'm just going solo now, basically. And I've got to ride pegged with a mate tomorrow. But it's funny because you see, mother and father out, and there's this gaggle of little kids on their trainer bikes in behind them on the footpath, and it looks like ducks walking down the road. It's actually quite But
It's
you know,
nice. It's giving
sorry.
them the opportunity. Is it giving them the opportunity to cycle as a family on those rare occasions where there isn't much traffic?
Well, that's exactly right. That's happening, and cycling here. That's one of the sports that's actually taken off because again, here we're supposedly in lockdown, but you're allowed out to exercise. You're allowed out to do your essential shopping and to see the doctor and things like that. But you know, it's probably not policed as much as everywhere else. But I mean, that's the rule, and that's what it's supposed to happen. So you do get all these people that are out, and they, you know, we're very close to the coast here. So I'm about 10 kilometres from where I live, actually, you know, so it's an easy ride out there, you know, to the beaches of the Gold Coast. And basically there's a lot of people out still using the beaches for walking and exercise. And you're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to sunbake. You're not supposed to be sitting down or anything like that. And they do have the council patrolling that to make sure that you get moved on, sort of. But bicycling, yes, I mean it's something that people can do. They can do it as a family. So bicycle shops have been actually pretty good here with the, you know, they can, you know, people have been pulling out their old bikes and so they need to get them serviced, and so they've been going through that. Plus, you know, the sale, I don't know really so much if it's been performance bikes, but you know, bikes in general, the utility bikes that you talk of, cruisers and stuff like that. I think there's been some really good sales over
Yeah,
this.
I think it may well have introduced cycling to a new customer base who may wish to travel by bike rather than on the train or on a bus.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
that,
You know,
in London will be quite a big move. The cities, I think the cycling in cities will change. I
well,
think.
let's hope so. Let's hope it does. I mean, everybody likes to get more, you know, human-powered vehicles around and clear the congestion. I mean, I think everybody wants that. So, except for the people.
I mentioned the 4th of May, we can go out on the bike. Industry is starting to take off this week, more so next week. But we still have to wait until the 1st of June to get a cappuccino in a bar or go out for a meal.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a real challenge of this restrictions. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but we'll obviously have to see it in reality. But this is all part of the build-up of going back to some kind of normality, slowly, until we get this virus sorted out, or we can handle the situation with the NHS in Italy or the NHS in England, you know, National Health Service, can manage any breakouts that are limited, but we have to accept it because otherwise, you know, we're all going to lose too much, the industry. I mean, there's too much.
Well, that's right. And it's exactly the same here. They're already talking about how well they've done with the isolation and how well they've got it under control. So they need to be able to do that. So when they do that, then people are going to go out. So they do have to put in place a plan to slowly open things up again. But, you know, there's still going to be restrictions, but they're always talking about, well, if it flares up, well, then everyone's back in again, right? If people are doing the wrong thing, well, you know, we shut it down again, right? So we just have to see and hope that, you know, everyone has got it in their mind, you know, their own sense of isolation, still, you know, maintaining their hygiene and things like that. So let's hope it does, and then it can actually start and grow again. Right? So
obviously my business is based mainly with non-Italians. You know, Italians don't need me to put the tours together, so I'm reliant on aircraft because, you know, people come in by plane basically,
right.
And that's going to be a challenge.
Well, that's going to be
that's not going to happen here for some time. You know, I actually had my flights booked to come back in mid-March, late March. A couple of flights in April, a few flights in May. Everything's been cancelled. Everything's been cancelled for me from Tuscany. There's no flights in, no flights out from the charters that are regularly flying between England and Italy and Tuscany, should I say. So that's not going to change for some time yet. So, you know, it's almost like writing off 2020. So what do? You know, basically, I enjoy cycling, so I'm cycling. But what I'm going to do now is change my website. You know, refresh my website. It's about 6 years old. It needs new images, new layout, more fresh. So I'm going to employ a photographer, spend a week with me, and visit all the places I've mentioned to you. Take pictures of the vineyards, wine tasting, pictures of towns, food, pasta, scenery, bikes in general. Just get a feel for the tours and have it freshened up, and more dialogue on the website. I'm doing a bit more social media because I've got time to do so. That's how I contacted you. Through LinkedIn.
Well, that's right.
It's giving me something new and fresh to get involved in, and to understand more what's possible. But, you're out there to promote yourself, like you are.
Sorry?
We're out there to promote ourselves in different ways. When the time comes, more likely to be next year than this year. There's so much uncertainty this year. That's why September job is a real question mark as to if the confidence is there to come back with flights. It'll be limited. It'll be more expensive and it'll be limited. And it all depends on people's comfort zone as to whether they feel it'll go short. By the way, it'll be short haul before long haul comes back.
Yeah. And Australia being an island itself, like with our situation, I mean, it's very critical. I mean, we might be okay here, but once you start opening up flights to other destinations, I mean, that's where the trap happens again. So we're sort of not expecting flights offshore to happen for quite some time until other countries are well and truly in check. I mean, we're talking about between Australia and New Zealand only at this point, but I think you're absolutely correct. The long haul flights and everywhere from Australia is long haul. I think that's going to take some time to get that confidence back. But with the same breath, those industries they're dying and they're screaming for help as well. So, I mean, there's motivation to get it going, but there's also very much caution to just make sure that everything's got the all clear before it happens again.
Yeah, I mean, we have to see how this opening up of the restaurant, bars, and hotels. We're not sure when the hotels are going to open and what are the hotels going to do over breakfast, for instance. Are they going to miss out one room yes, one room no? In terms of capacity. I mean, they've got a bigger challenge as much as the restaurants and bars. Especially small restaurants aren't going to be able to. Well, will it be worth opening up? Because the videos, the shows that that's what shows, but the programs they've shown you at some of these piazzas with the restaurants and bars outside, if you can only open a third of the market, you can't cover your costs with staff as well.
No, that's
so there's lots of question marks as to how that's going to be handled. And so until all that side is covered, we don't know how the season will end.
Well, exactly. What I've got one with you, and I mean, it's all interconnected, isn't it? Right. So it really is.
What I don't know is, what I do know is that the Italians will support Italy themselves. In other words, the patriotic side of Italy, as much it will be in France and England, is to go and support your local businesses now.
Yeah.
As soon as a bar's open, a restaurant, I want to go there. I want to support the guys because they've literally got nothing. They've not been given a great deal of support. And they still have to pay the rent and the rates, electricity. There's some help, but it's never going to be enough. So, and a lot of them, as I mentioned before, everything's family run. There's no big chains over here. Italy doesn't have big names, big brands. Like in England, you go to any city centre in England, it's all the same. Same shops, same banks, betting shops. Italy sent all these towns, every town you go to, even Rome, they're all individual businesses with their own individual character, which is what you like. We don't want to go into San Gimignano and Siena and Lucca or Pienza, everything looking the same. It's all very independent. And that's what it's nice about Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the sort of impression that we get, but I must say I've never been there, but you've certainly whet my appetite.
Here at Porphyro, we design our cycling wear from the patterns to the artwork. We look to proven areas such as Europe and Japan to procure our quality materials. We seek out qualified manufacturers and see for ourselves how they operate and what expertise they can bring to the table. We do this so we can produce the best cycling garments on the market. Porphyro's designs take inspiration from Mother Nature, the greatest force we know, so you can absorb and feel it inspire and give you the strength to achieve anything. With Porphyro gear, you are the primo cyclist in the peloton.
thanks for letting me get my little plug in. That's really good. But this is all about, this interview is about you and your business, because I'm really interested in cycle tourism. I mean, it's taking off all over the world, especially with e-bikes and so forth. It's really opening it up to a much larger audience. You're talking, you know, there's also a lot of tourists from Vietnam and Asia now as well. So it really is one of these tourism options that, you know, is becoming very popular, and the industry itself is just growing at such a rapid rate. So anyway, we'll leave it there. And Marco, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. And I'll be putting this video up on my social media and you know, and so forth, and on my website. Plus I'll have a little bit of a commentary that goes along with it. So yes, if you could give me some photos and send me some photos with that and links to your website, so we can get people there. You know, it'd be terrific to see a lot more Australians, you know, go there, and hopefully we can get some Asian people to go there as well. I mean, to experience, you know, a totally different sort of atmosphere and environment that they're used to as well. So I wish you all the best with that, and hopefully we can, you know, promote something. So thanks very much, Marco. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for getting in contact, and nice to make a connection. And I'll definitely keep in touch and see how you're getting on and see how things develop on your side as much as on my side.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate. So thanks very much. I'll just stop this recording. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers then. Bye-bye.
Bye.